Hey everyone, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys. Lots to talk about in this video. We've got war between Israel and Iran breaking out with a bit of a drop in the market in response to that. Are we about to top out and enter weekly consolidation? We're going to look at the major sectors that are impacted: gold, oil, defensive companies. We're going to look at our normal names like uranium and quantum. Circle recent IPOs getting attention in the upcoming week ahead. Tesla's had great volatility. Lots of charts. Let's go. So as we know, in these heightened emotional times, it is important for us as traders to do our best to separate ourselves from that. And as I've said many times, I've got Trader Dan and Real Dan as far as two different people, personalities, and brains, and how my brain works. And we have to treat this, if we're going to be successful trading, as an event that is only moving flashing numbers on the screen. And that's very difficult to do. Last night I had a dream where there were bombs going off and I was diving for cover as a cloud of dust came through and, could hardly breathe. And that's, it's significant. So we have to do our best. And the way that I do that is, I cannot stress enough, making definitive statements. My statement for weeks has been, if we are in a daily uptrend in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, I am bullish. So the only question I ask myself every day is, are we in a daily uptrend? Yes, I'm bullish. And so that makes things like this easy, where yesterday, that was the question I asked. The answer was still yes. And there wasn't, that's the question versus, is this a big deal? Should I sell all my longs? Is Iran going to retaliate and start World War III? Then you're going down this rabbit hole of an emotional way of thinking that can very easily lead for you to sway from your game plans and make mistakes with your money. That's essentially what trading is. The hardest part of trading is eliminating our emotions from it. So definitive statements help us eliminate those emotions from the equation, so we're not making those decisions on the fly in heightened states of emotion. So the NASDAQ on the weekly time frame definitely looks like we may be shaping up for weekly consolidation. Obviously, we're going to be in a headline-sensitive environment into next week. We know there's going to be back and forth retaliations. The market's aware of that to a certain degree, but any potential escalations obviously could have an impact. Overnight volatility is going to be more of a thing, and it would not be surprising in the slightest to get weekly consolidation, right? When you stair step up for 6-7 weeks in a row, pulling back to look for a weekly high or low wouldn't be surprising, war or not. So there's tons of space for a weekly high or low. So again, that's still going to be my mindset, where if we lose the daily uptrend, which we'll look at in just a moment, then okay, I take a step back, I reassess the situation, I'm less bullish. Maybe I'm more prone to swinging bearish, but I will still be looking for weekly higher lows to be the result of that pullback. But first things first, on the daily chart, we pulled back overnight on the initial news. And there was, plenty of heads up in the sense that Trump says it's about to get ugly in the Middle East. And we see, little signs that things are heating up a bit. So definitely want to be paying attention to that. If you're overexposed long, that's definitely, maybe I should grab a little hedge. But we pulled right back to the daily higher low support and bounced off of it. So that's the most important level into this coming week. On the 4-hour time frame, we dropped down and we held it. We had a big bounce through Monday morning, but we knew a lower high was the most likely scenario, and we set it. So the question into next week to start is, do we keep the 4-hour downtrend going with new lower lows, losing the daily uptrend? Again, bear checklist, lose the daily uptrend, step 1. Step 2 would be to confirm a daily downtrend as a result of the next bounce whenever that happens. You got to have that step 2 if the bears are going to prove any follow through. And then from there, we'd look at our weekly retracement size as to how significant it is. That's Twitter. What did I ask Grok? Okay, it was appropriate. So we've got daily support. And we're either going to see a 4, under normal circumstances, I look for a 4-hour equilibrium, but obviously headlines can skew that most likely scenario. And as far as how we topped out, for me, the financial sector, my major sectors, QQQ, XLF, XOV, are what I'm watching every day. And the financial sector gave me the clearest and easiest clues on Friday. So we'll look at that zoomed in just a moment. But 4-hour time frame there, the S&P 500, same thing, right off daily support, 4-hour potential. Again, if I were more bullish, I'd be looking for a potential 4-hour inverse head and shoulders, but definitely open to the possibility we see further downside, but standard equilibrium watch. If we hold the overnight low, then we look for the higher low and a bounce to tighten up. And if we lose support, bears got to confirm the daily downtrend. We have a couple other levels we'll be watching, but really struggling at 6,000. A lot of back and forth with this 6,000 level. If you just put a line on 6,000, close. Oh, I nailed it. Zoom out, and you can see that this is the 4-hour resistance, 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 support, 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 and now we're back under it. So just a lot of back and forth the last couple of weeks with 6,000. Semiconductors, you look at this daily chart, first the weekly, again, tons of space for a weekly higher low. But you look at this daily chart, and there's tons of space for a daily higher low. We just had a higher low every single day for 9 days in a row, and we just broke that on Friday. We're not even close to backtesting the previous resistance zone that we were struggling at. So again, what's the most likely scenario for semiconductors? I'm definitely looking for a daily higher low, and names like MU, which had been a lead bull, just absolute beast mode. In a video 2 weeks ago, probably talked about the automated buying on the 5-minute time frame from Monday, June 2nd, and what a catalyst that turned out to be. I didn't get any of this move, but extremely impressive. Daily higher low most likely scenario. SMCI is tightening up. This is a daily equilibrium. Watching this closely to see how this tightening range is going to break. So semiconductors overall still very strong, not at risk of losing the daily uptrend anytime soon. We would need a very significant leg down for that to be the case. And of course, NVDA grinding again, similar to the S&P 500 struggling at 6,000. NVDA 143, 144, just a ton of back and forth chopping around sideways at that level. Tesla, the volatility has been beautiful. Drama city, but we'll take drama for volatility. So we had the big gap downs. Trump and Musk are fighting. They're making up, and robo-taxi, yada, yada. Big bounce up. Two gap ups. After 2 gap ups, when a daily lower high is the most likely scenario and you bounce double-digit percent, you know to be keeping an eye out for that daily lower high. It was set. We then had the gap down Friday, significant buying, headlines of potential restrictions being lifted on self-driving stuff, clear resistance rejection from the high of Thursday, little double top in the 332s. But again, looking for a daily higher low to be the most likely scenario on Tesla in this tightening range. And if you're a day trader, the volatility that comes along with the volume and liquidity of Tesla is a gift. It is, there are periods like here where I don't really day trade it much, but so much of what Tesla does, this is beautiful day trading. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's the backbone. There have been multiple years where Tesla is my #1 profit trading ticker, just because on any given day, I know I can sit down and look at Tesla being the potential target for the day for day trading. And swing trading, of course, as well, but the intraday volatility is great. And so we had a significant bounce on the morning, kept it going, little climax. Look at the EMA riders. I really like EMA riders where, again, I can turn off my brain and not think. Tesla bulls have absolute complete control as long as 2-minute EMA 12 is support. I usually identify when an EMA holds like 3 times, and then I know that's the EMA to be paying attention to. Hold it, hold it, hold it. As soon as we lose it, that's the high of the day. So, if I short on the loss of an EMA 12 on the 2-minute time frame and I stick my stop over the high of the day, I'm definitely going to stop out sometimes with a small loss. But again, the risk reward, let's just say $3 risk, and that would be a fairly poor entry. And the potential reward ends up being $6. So I highly suggest finding those EMA riders. And you hear me in these videos talk about it all the time. Daily EMA 12, full bull control guide. We've held it for a month. When we lose it, we know things are shifting. If we're not losing it, nothing changes. So I do that constantly on a bunch of different time frames when it's nice and clear like that. And very often, you just pinpoint it. Well, that's where things shifted. And so that was the case for Tesla on Tuesday. We came back to resistance. It looked like, I'm going to stop out. Nope. Just got to be patient. Let the trade play out. XLF. So I really liked the clarity of XLF. XLF right now is the bears are trying to negate the possible weekly bull flag. And a key level is 49.57. break that, and it'll be the lowest price in a month, and that will show weakening for sure. Obviously, Friday we had a lot of weakness. Headlines with, the Visa and MasterCard got hit hard with stablecoin stuff that's going on, and we'll talk about that in just a moment for circles. But why I found XLF to be a great guide for me is I always want to identify on the morning lead bulls and lead bears, individual names and sectors. And so when I can identify, okay, the financial sector is the lead bear on the morning, I then know that if there's going to be any shift on the tone of the day, it has to be the lead bear turning to a bull. And so what we had was down, all bear control down until 10:30. And at that point in time, the NASDAQ had a strong start, but gave it back and a new low of the day. And it ended up being a new low with no follow through. But what shifted for me was when XLF broke 50.03, which was a little resistance level that we struggled at a couple times on the way down. And as soon as that broke, again, the tone changed drastically. And we went straight up for the next 30 minutes. And from that point, the S&P 500 made a drastic turnaround. Like, oh, new low of the day, the bears are taking over. It could be easy to get faked out by that turnaround, but we confirmed a 5-minute uptrend. The financial sector was strengthening significantly, and we had some nice bull follow through from that. Then, again, the flip side, new highs on the NASDAQ, new highs on the S&P 500. But if you look at the financial sector, we rejected from the high of the day, almost a double top. We're overextended. The 5-minute RSI gets overbought right at resistance. We set a lower high and fail resistance and then roll over. And then the bears take over from there into the end of the day. So really the shift for me in the broader market on Friday was most clear in XLF. And that resistance, having the resistance to go off of from the same day just makes it a lot easier to see. Okay, if we can't get over that level, the bounce is going to top out in the S&P 500. And we gave it all back and then kept bouncing off this level. So 49.80s will be key first thing on Monday if they're in play. Healthcare sector, lead bull over the last couple of weeks. We were watching this falling wedge type of pattern because we confirmed a bear flag with no follow through. And we often know that wedges turn into head and shoulders or inverse head and shoulders. So what I'm watching for is we know anything under 140.79 is a weekly lower high. I'm keeping an eye out for the possibility of a weekly inverse head and shoulders if this move is going to follow through. We've got to confirm a weekly uptrend eventually. So keeping an eye out for that. We had UNH finally broke its sideways range bullish. A bad timing just in the terms of unable to see a lot of follow through because of the Friday headline. We had a great Wednesday and Thursday. The bull break happened initially at 307s, and that was a double top, 307.64, 307.40, and we had some good back tests of that level. Again, you always want to hold the previous tough zone in the opposite direction if you're going to believe in follow through. And so here's our 107's resistance, and look at the break and hold. We break above it, chop around, hold 107, hold 107, hold 107, and keep getting another leg up. So the equilibrium did break bull. The next level is the initial bounce high, 325, as the most important resistance. And I'll call anything above 300 a daily high or low. So inside bar on Friday, we'll see if the healthcare sector can stay strong. Again, you look at the healthcare sector on the daily chart, we broke to a higher high on Friday. Certainly not many things can say that. Again, space for a daily high or low there. So keeping an eye on UNH to see if we get bounce follow through. We know a weekly lower high is the most likely result of this bounce eventually. Bulls are just hoping we can work on some gap fills back to the upside, which would be 342 plus dividend on Monday. Uranium still standing out real strong, and they were a top watch for me into this coming week because of the bull flags that were out there. CCJ was a top watch because it was a beautiful cup and handle, double top at all-time highs, bull flag, and then news with a big gap and run. And I think we were up something like 10% that day. And then look at the back test, just a perfect example. So you got the double top at 62.27 and 62.55, the all-time highs. And look at this back test. We had the huge day on Monday. We gave it back in a big way on Tuesday, not all of it, but from the close, at one point we're down 6.5%. That's Man, I thought we were strong. Blue sky breakout. What the heck? And then it was a complete turnaround where we were then very strong again on Wednesday because it looked just a perfect back test and hold. And so look at the sideways trading now. Look at the close at the high of the day. Anything that closed at the high of the day on Friday, yesterday, glaringly gets our attention. And so this is very healthy sideways consolidation right up at all-time highs. And I've had a CCJ swing position. I've lucked out and grabbed some Friday afternoon, took some profit on the move up. My break even now is plenty of wiggle room down in the 55s. I'm having a stop under 62. 61.99 is my stop to ensure some profit, but I'm looking for another leg up. And you look at OKLO, cup and handle. Cup and handles are so often misidentified, but we've got some really good examples in uranium. Huge surge up, 20+% on Wednesday. We had dilution news Wednesday night, and bulls shook it off and bought that dip into a new high on Thursday. That was impressive. So again, back burners are on watch. We'll watch for hourly oversold to try and mark a daily high or low in these uranium names. SMR is the other one that was hitting all-time highs. As we know, again, bull flag. Anything that's hitting all-time highs gets extra attention for the bulls, and uranium is still just fine. So again, if I'm, not confident, the broader market can lose the daily uptrend very easily from where we stand. Another % down and it's a break. But you've got these places like semis, like MU, like uranium, where even if that happens, daily higher lows are still the most likely scenario here. So I'm a bull in uranium as long as we're in a daily uptrend and liking the volatility here in these names as well. Quantum weakened significantly. And there are periods where they're significantly correlated. That definitely faded a lot this past week. News being a big part of that, in my opinion. But QBTS was trying for a weekly bull flag. It's not negated, but it's a lot less likely just because we're back to a new low now. And you can see all week, close lower than we open 5 days in a row. That shows you some good bear action. And we're looking at a gap fill of 1344 if the weakness continues. These quantum names are pretty much a leveraged version of the NASDAQ in both directions. Uranium can ignore the NASDAQ. Quantum really struggles to do that. QUBT was the lead bull. Plenty of space for a daily high or low as quantum has been seeing some rotation. We're not going to forget, there are a lot of names where monthly lower highs are potentially the most likely scenario still. RGTI, another one. And again, just a good bit of weakness recently. So still hanging on. I just have less conviction that we're going to stay bullish here than I do on uranium because of the current setups. Blue sky breakout versus potential monthly lower highs, daily downtrends, things like that. Obviously very different. But still keeping an eye on it. But, if the broader market continues to weaken from a day trading perspective, I know that quantum is a name that I will short. Circle. So Circle looks great. All-time highs certainly look like they're coming. So what happened is we've got a vote on the Genius Act, and that's what my grok said when I clicked the wrong screen. Potential vote on Monday or Tuesday. This is bullish for stablecoins, and CRCL is the only public stablecoin company. I was talking about this. We were waiting for a show last night, music with a friend, having a beer, and we were talking about stablecoins and with the amount of money that Tether makes as a private company, to only have one public, it's a funnel of capital. If there's bullish stablecoin news, and we know this administration is, as bull crypto as we've ever seen, and if we're bullish stablecoins, it's a funnel effect where it's CRCL. And blue sky breakout, we're testing the all-time high, back test and hold of 100 psychological, daily bull flag, and more looks like we're coming. And so I think all-time highs, and I'm watching hourly. Hourly higher low will be on watch. Bulls are hoping this is a cup and handle. And talking about all these bull flags recently, but if we can see an hourly cup and handle there, depending on what the broader market does in futures Sunday night, I wouldn't be surprised for a gap up open on CRCL, but no need to try and predict that. We'll just see what we get Monday morning. I know I'm looking for an hourly higher low entry on CRCL because of the proximity to all-time highs and this potential catalyst. And the catalysts for political, legal changes, laws, acts, things like that, are very significant. And so not only did it stand out how strong it was closing, had I seen, I took my eye off it. Had I seen this move, I probably would have grabbed some swing, that big push up of an extra, 5% right into the close. But look at the other crypto names. Coin closed up at the high of the day with a little bit of unusual strength. We're looking for a weekly higher low here as well. I'm going to be focusing on CRCL because, again, I like to keep an eye on one or at most two names in a sector. I got CCJ as my uranium swing name. I'll day trade OKLO. I've got, QBTS and IONQ, but really it's just CRCL for me. But MSTR, same thing, closed at the high of the day. Definitely stood out as unusual compared to a ton of other things. So top watch for that genius vote early this coming week with CRCL Blue Sky breakout trying to continue. Next target would be 150 psychological. Of course, the other impacts of the war stuff, you got the defensive names. LMT. LMT has a very tight weekly range that's testing resistance here. This reminds me of oil a little bit. Let's actually pull that up. Again, my brain just chart association. Let's see if I'm making it up. Oil obviously had a huge move, but weekly chart. So tightening up, lower highs, tight. Yeah, it's very similar. Dropping down there, pretty much this action, reminding me of this action. And so, can the bulls turn the 490s into support and get a breakout? This is a bottoming pattern attempt. We'll talk about oil more in just a moment, but essentially looking for a 3-month higher low, longer term time frame, holding a base of support at 400. So other than that, you've got, blue sky names, RTX, Raytheon, blue sky breakout, gap up, holding it, closing strong. Again, bulls paying extra attention to things in blue sky breakout, and these are another number of them. Commodities, dollar, multiple 3-year lows. Good sign. Weekly downtrend remains our guide. Full bear control as long as we're in a weekly downtrend. Fresh lows, daily downtrend as well. Daily EMA 12 driving it down. Good sign for metals. Gold had a bull response to the headline, breaking to multiple week highs in gold and really just all-time high resistance now. So we've been chopping around sideways a bit. We've got our higher low, and it's just all about 3,500. Weekly time frame, EMA 12. Nothing changes if this is support, and it has been support for many months, all year. So holding it again, sideways, and now trying for another bull flag. We've seen a bunch of bull flags on the way up. And so I've been focusing on silver. Gold led the way here, XAU, XAG. So that's the bounce showing gold gaining on silver the last week. We'll see if that sets a lower high. Ideally, it does. What I want to see is a metal bull. Obviously, I've got more silver exposure, but what I want to see is a metal bull is ideally a gold all-time high, and then a daily lower high on this chart, which means silver playing catch-up. Ideally, silver confirming its daily bull flag, which is in play. I did move up a stop. I will exit some of my position if this level breaks to just be a little bit more protective. If it holds, we're heading higher to new 13-year highs, 37 plus. But we had a choppy reaction. You see the 4-hour is sideways, a lot of back and forth. When the headline hits, it's gold is the clear play. It did look like some money was selling silver to go into gold. But again, we'll see if that trickles out. The miners look great still. GDX testing the high. Again, bull flag trying to confirm. And it's still a double top. Got to pay attention. GDXJ as well. I've got to stop now on my remaining GDXJ position under 68. It's actually a JNUG position, but I will exit JNUG if GDXJ breaks that level. So just walking up stops on the metals plays. They're looking good still. Oil had the huge move. Remember, we saw this happening before the headline, right? We saw the shift. We saw the break of 60. We had the equilibrium, which we knew was the most likely scenario long in advance, and it was shaping up. We broke 60. We double bottomed at 60. And then when we finally broke it, we saw zero follow through. And that's a sign for the bulls. Bears can't keep the price under 60. That's a good thing if you're a bull. And then we just had a wall at 64, and the bull break took place before the headlines. The bull break was Friday of last week, Monday some follow through, Tuesday some follow through, Wednesday some significant follow through, and then a monster volatility move. We were up 11% on oil at one point. Fun to watch that overnight. A bunch of chart guys members were trading this Climax. And again, the volume, or I should say the volatility in both directions. You get the 11% move up, but then the bears feast as well. That pullback, that's an 8.5% drop into, this is why I love equilibriums, 5% upside. So it's just an hourly equilibrium, but you get the monster opportunity, big opportunity. When you have such a wide range, even though the moves are constricting and tightening, each move is still very worthwhile for a while. And then you get to a point where, okay, now these moves, not really worthwhile to try and nail at this point. You wait for the equilibrium to break. But you can anticipate, as soon as the retracement is significant enough, after the move in both directions, we know an equilibrium is most likely as soon as you go 50% retracement. And when you then have that as your framework, your scaffolding of your trade game plan to know the most likely scenarios, it makes life a lot easier in terms of, okay, I know I'm looking for the hourly higher low. I zoom into the 5 minute. I look for signs of the 5 minute trend change back to the bulls. It was oversold on the 5 and 15 minute time frame. There were a number of things lining up for it. Natural gas, probably up, but not as much. I'm not watching natural gas except for right now. Still nothing, just sideways, nothing. Trying to build a base at 350, not confident at this point. Pretty much 4 weeks where nothing has changed. And I think that's it. Platinum's been putting on a show for those that care about commodities. Daily top for now. We're going to look for a daily higher low, watching to see if we get to 4 hour oversold. Guess what changed things? Look at 4 hour EMA 12. Hold it on the way up. When you lose it, things have shifted. So much of my trading strategy, even if it's just a runner, if I'm in a long position, I'm going to hold this last third of my position as long as we're holding EMA 12 support. And then that's my indication to exit the trade when it's lost. I can't suggest enough having that as a factor in your strategies. It helps to let the trade run. Again, it's that simple statement. I will hold this position as long as this EMA is support. If I didn't have that as my, again, I'm just using a hypothetical example, but if I didn't have that as my clear thesis statement, then, I'd be looking to say, okay, well, we're overbought, and, I'm looking back at previous history, and, well, we've got to pull back, and blah, blah. There's just so many more factorings of decisions where you can talk yourself into or out of whatever. You can react to your emotions. I'm feeling euphoric. I've got a bunch of profit. I want to lock it in. Nope, just a line. Just a simple little line. All right, do good things. Hope you're well. Remove those emotions. Have an outlet for them somewhere. Don't just bury them down. That's what sitting out in nature is for. And we'll see you soon.
So this bee looking thing with a yellow circle on its face, this is a wood turkey that a bunch of carpenter bees have lived in for years, carving it out. It's almost hollow inside. And today I watched whatever this is. It looked like it was kidnapping the carpenter bees. Something would crawl out of the hole. I don't know if it was the same species as this or if it was the carpenter bee, but they would latch onto its back and instantly fly away. It feels like a raid and a kidnapping, but I can't find anything about what these would be. In western North Carolina, definitely some kind of predatory wasp or bee. What you got?